Hello YouTube, welcome to another episode. Today we're talking about pen knives, specifically EDC carry for the UK market. Now I did a video last year, I'll link up in the top corner for that. So for 2024, quite a lot's happened between then and now, so I thought it was time to do an update for 2025. So where to start? Well, if you've watched my 2024 video, you'll recall I said I was trialling this little hook here. So it's called a Nanohook. I've been getting these from Amazon, although I believe similar things can be bought elsewhere. I found out about them from another YouTuber, John Gadget, from the Gadget Shop, as it was. And I have to say, I'm actually really impressed with these pocket clips, because everyone knows the Knox doesn't come with a pocket clip. There's a few ways of sticking one on or screwing one on, but out the box none of them have a pocket clip. But I would say I'm not keen of pocket clips necessarily on knives, and what I was finding was normally I'd just carry a knife loose in my jeans pocket, and this compact here was about as big as I wanted to go, and even then it was perhaps a little chunky. But I would say this little hook here has been transformational, and it allows me to carry much bigger and heavier knives as an EDC than I ever thought I would. So I tend to just clip it onto the back of my left jeans pocket. I'll see if I can put a screenshot up just to show how it works. And what I really like is basically the knife just hangs inside your pocket, so it's like ultra deep carry. You know, typically if you've got a knife that has a pocket clip on it, it would look something like this little knife here. So that's not really deep carry, because you're going to have part of the knife sticking out. And I've got another example here. This is close to being deep carry, as the pocket clip goes all the way to the end, but I just haven't got on carrying knives that way. Some people can, and if you do, that's absolutely fine, or if you just want it floating about in your pocket. But this for me has been a huge deal, and I have now many of these clips across many different knives. So if you're wanting to try something out, give it a go. It's a little tight to get over the pocket, but it doesn't fall off on jeans, and the only downside is I've found it can just wear the edge of the pocket a little bit, but I'm not going to be moving away from this. Really impressed with these. So should we just do a little bit of a roundup of some of the knives that I had last year that we covered and where we're at with them now. So I still have the Swizzer or Swizzer. My view hasn't really changed on this. It's quite a grippy material. As you can see, it's got some dirt on it there. It doesn't tend to clean up very well if you do get oil or grease on it, and it's very grippy inside your pocket, so if you're just carrying it loose in your pocket, I find it quite uncomfortable. It's also quite large. It's notably longer than a Knox, and you don't really get many features on it. There is no lanyard hoop on this particular one. I believe maybe some of them have it, but not necessarily for the UK market. And here all we really do have is the bottle opener, which isn't actually too bad, with a little pry bar screwdriver, the can opener, which I'm never going to use, which I've said before, the smaller screwdriver. On the back, this particular one has a Phillips screwdriver, which is quite good, instead of a corkscrew. I don't really need the corkscrew, but it does mean you've got no sort of glasses screwdriver on here, and you've got quite a nice blade. And I have found it's quite sharp. I tend to actually keep this by my desk rather than carry it, and I tend to use it quite a lot when I'm doing modelling. So I build like Tamiya RC models. This is quite good for trimming bits of plastic off the sprue, or any sort of flashing, and it does seem to sharpen quite nice and hold a good edge. So I don't hate the knife, I just don't think it's very good for everyday carry. In a bag or a coat pocket maybe, but just not necessarily on my person. We do have the little awl as well, and the only scale tool we've got on here is we do have some tweezers, which are pretty good little tweezers actually, but as I mentioned before, the way it's done with the little nail nick, I don't know if it'll focus on the camera, it's quite sharp on your fingers just to pull it out when you're using them. So I don't think I'd get another one of these. Definitely for the UK market, they don't offer very many non-locking options. Most of their blades are locking, and there are no scissors, so that one really is kind of out as an EDC. Then we've got the little Bocker, or Bocker, however you want to pronounce it. I think this is their Mini Team City 4, so it's got a mouthful of a name. Now, I do quite like this, and I've always quite liked this, although it's got quite a diminutive size. It's quite small compared to the Victorinox, but it is quite chunky. You know, it feels every bit as heavy, and in your pocket loose, I did find it was actually sometimes a little bit uncomfortable. But again, you can see I've got one of these nano clips on here, so even though it's a small knife, this nano clip works really, really well. And as I've said previously in my last video, even though you've not got a huge blade on here, I've actually found that this size blade is absolutely perfect for everything I ever need. I don't find them cutting carpet every day. In fact, there's nothing I've ever used an EDC knife for that I've needed a larger blade than this. And it's a fairly stout blade, we've got no play in it. So I'm quite happy having that size blade. And just to give a comparison back to that Swizzer blade, you can see there's quite a difference in blade size in terms of length. Also on the Bocker, as we said before, we do have quite a funky little tool here. It's a little multi-tool, so we've got a little sort of pry bar, screwdriver, and a little sort of package opener, hook blade in there, and a bottle opener. Now the hook blade works really quite well. I've still not had to sharpen that since I've been using this, and it is quite good. You know, you can get into certain types of packaging and just put it open. And then we have some scissors as well. And as I said before, I do like scissors. They're one of the things I value the most on an EDC knife. But these scissors, as you can see, they've got this weird mechanism which kind of makes it rock about when you use them. You can kind of try and hold it steady, but then it rocks the handle instead. And they're just not actually that good. I have sharpened them, and that massively improved them again. But if you're cutting things like cable ties, I think zip ties in America, they kind of struggle, and they just aren't the best scissors, but they are adequate. So this one is still in EDC rotation. I don't carry it as often, but it is a good little knife. Also had a Rook, or however you want to pronounce it, Ruike, R-U-I-K-E. This is the Fenix flashlight brand of knives. This knife, it's quite nice. It's very heavy and chunky. I mean, you can kind of just see by the thickness of the blade there along the back of the spine that everything is very chunky, and it feels very, very solid, and it does sharpen well and keep a very good edge. So if you want something a little bit more substantial, I think this range of knives is actually very good. I would say I've also put the nano clip on here because I just didn't get on with the pocket clip, with the way it sat in my pocket, and having the nano clip on there has enabled me to EDC this. We do get some tweezers, which are quite different tweezers to Victorinox. So these are huge. If you want to grab some Victorinox tweezers just to compare, you can see they're kind of twice the size. So they are much better at some things, and at other things they're not as good at. Personally, I probably prefer the Victorinox tweezers, but these are quite adequate, and they work quite well in the scale tool. So this knife is good, but I do find I don't use it as often. It's got this weird belt cutter blade, which, to be honest, I've never actually found a use for. It's not any good for opening packages, really. You just use the main blade. We do have the bottle opener. Now, the bottle opener being really thick, that does work better than any of the Victorinox ones, I would say. And we've got the screwdriver end there. Oh, we're just on that one. We do have a screwdriver end on this blade here, but I have found that potentially lethal to actually use, because if you're trying to do anything, it's all at a weird angle, and it's so easy to slip and move your hands up towards the blade there. I'd almost count that as dangerous. And then last off, we do have the scissors. Now these scissors are actually quite capable scissors. Again, they've got this lever mechanism, and they do move about a bit when you use them. Not quite as bad as the smaller Bocker ones, but they are quite capable scissors. So all in all, it's not a bad package, and it's one I will endeavour to carry more than I have been recently. mostly down to the fact that I've now got this nano clip on. You can see I've actually kind of fixed it onto the clip using a loop. That seems to be quite a nice way of doing it, and it also enables me to hang it up. So I can definitely recommend this if you want something a bit more heavy duty, but you are perhaps limited by the number of tools you actually have on one of these. So moving on a little bit, on a little bit of a whim, I actually bought another knife recently. Now this is actually a Bocker knife, although you can kind of see it's identical in many ways to the Rook. So I assume Bocker actually make these for Fenix, which is no bad thing, and it sort of sums up the quality. And we have an identical blade on the knife, and they really are very, very similar. Now, the reason I bought this was twofold. Firstly, it's got a pair of pliers on, which I haven't got on anything else, so it was a little bit of a novelty. Although a bit like the scissors, although they're worse, you see how much they move when you try and use the lever. And you can kind of try and hold it steady, but then the handle wobbles about. It's they're not actually the easiest to use to try and grab hold of anything, because you kind of put something out to get hold of it and miss it. But we do have some pliers there. What else have we got on this particular one? We also have a saw blade, which I thought might be kind of handy. We've got the main blade, and on the back we've just got an awl, sewing awl. But we do have some scale tools as well, so we have the same tweezers that the Rook had. And we also have a toothpick, which is really quite tough to get out, and is quite, even though it's plastic, it's a real sharp little hooky point on there. And it doesn't like going back in very well, to the point that you have to bend it almost, and then it also just sticks out. So overall, I'm a bit disappointed with Bocker. You feel like they could have done so much more, because we've only got 3 tools on the front, 1 on the back. When you even compare it to the Rook, we got 2 tools on the back. We got the awl and the corkscrew, and we had, was it 4 tools on the front. It just feels like it's a large knife, not necessarily offering a huge amount, and the scale tools just feel like they are, you know, it's just so rough on your finger that it's really not nice to hold. Victorinox just seems to do it so much better. So I can EDC this. I've put the Nanohook on it, but out of these two, I think the Rook is actually the better one, unless I specifically wanted some pliers. But I think in reflection, for the price of this, it was a little bit of an impulse buy, and it wasn't buying with my head, and you can buy a lot more knife for a lot less. So I'd say, you know, unless you really want one of these, and it's got a horrible name, Naturensunny, I don't know, Mark II, I can't pronounce it anyhow. I would say that's probably one to avoid. Whereas the Rook, they do a few of these. You can get them with the, instead of having the scissors, they will have the saw on as well, but you'll have these 2 tools on the back. The only oddity with these is, if you see, you've got the nail neck here, but for the scissors it's on the other side, and sometimes you feel like you have to go and turn it round to find the nail neck. It just feels a bit backwards. You can kind of notice this with the awl on here. So if you notice, and you hold it with your left hand, open it with your right hand, and there's no nail neck, then the nail neck's actually on the inside, which is kind of more difficult to get to. Just a little bit of an oddity anyhow. So the burning question is Victorinox still king? And I have to say, I think the answer is yes. So let's just review and recap, and then we'll go through some of the new stuff as well. In the UK, as I've already mentioned, these are all UK legal knives, so we aren't allowed anything with, has to be under 3-inch blade, and it can't be a locking blade. It's got to be something like a slip joint. So in years past, I would have carried something like this little knife here, which is a simple little lock knife, and this, again, it's got that small blade, absolutely brilliant. Didn't have any problems with this. Nice little knife. I've got another one here. This is a Sanrenmu Chinese knife. Really lovely one-handed opening. Again, it's actually got a small cutting blade, but you kind of end up with this extra finger well, so you can hold it and really it just feels really nice and controlled because it gives you kind of a bigger handle, or you can extend out if you need that extra reach. You can use it all just one-handed, absolutely lovely. But as you're not allowed locking knives, I've kind of just moved away from the single blade, and I definitely think a multi-tool is the way to go. So here is an older Victorinox knife I had. I actually lost this and I found it only last year. I think it's called an Excelsior. It is very lightweight and very slim, and you've got a single blade there, and then you've got a backup blade. I'll be honest, I've never ever needed a backup blade. I don't really like knives with more than one blade on. So I'm going to, even though this is a Victorinox, it doesn't actually have any branding on it. You've got no scale tools. I'm going to discount this one and say, you know, this isn't one that I would probably go back to carrying now, even though I carried it for many years, up until the point when I lost it. Again, that was the fact that it used to just float freely in my pocket, and it was nice and light. So, we've got the Bantam. This is really what replaced the Excelsior when I lost that. Now, the Bantam I do like because you get the scale tools, you get one blade, and you get this combi tool, which is a Phillips flathead, pry bar, and a bottle opener, all in one really lightweight package. Now, if I'm going to have a knife just floating about in my pocket and not on a hook, then this is probably what I'm going to pick, and I'd probably pick it over any single bladed knife, because even when you've got something like this Spyderco here, I can't remember, this is a Grasshopper I think, you might have a slightly more substantial looking blade on the Spyderco, and it is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter. It's not that much smaller or lighter, and you're just losing the bottle opener, the toothpick, and the tweezers, and hook to hang it up on. So yeah, one bladed knives really aren't my thing for EDC these days. The Bantam, that is still a cracking little knife. I've also got, I think this is called a Sportsman. So this is from a Victoria's 84mm range. Unfortunately, they don't seem to do this range anymore with scissors, which is a real shame. On the Sportsman, we do get the can opener, which is, again, absolutely pointless, and we get the more traditional bottle opener rather than the combi tool, so we do get the two different size flatheads there. And I have found that smaller flathead will work in a lot of Phillips screws. And we get the standard 84mm blade on here as well, plus the scale tools, plus over the Bantam you get the bottle opener, which then means you don't get it with it, but you can get this little glasses screwdriver. Very, very handy. Use it on sunglasses or regular glasses if any of the screws come loose. I've used that loads of times. And again, it doesn't come with it, but you can get it. You can get this little optional pin. So the hole's already in the scales. So that is really nice. I'd love to see Victorinox reintroduce this size knife, the 84mm, with some scissors. So I bought that one. The next edition is actually moving up quite a lot. So remember, this was my prime candidate last year. This was my winner, which was the Compact. So the Compact is from their 91mm range. As you can see, you know, obviously you can just work out the mass on it, but it actually does look and feel quite a bit bigger in the pocket than an 84mm. But of course, with the Compact, you do get the scissors, which really is quite a game changer, because they are the large scissors, which are really, really good. It does come with the glasses screwdriver. It does come with the pin, and these are the plus scales, so you also get a pen, which, I'll be honest, I thought I could live without, and I don't use a pen that often, but it has been fairly handy on a few occasions to have that. So I think this is really good. You do get the hook, which I think most people don't have a use for it, which does have a little nail file on it. Unfortunately, I would say the nail file is a novelty. It's not very functional, it's not very aggressive, it doesn't really do a lot, and it's not actually that easy to use. So the Compact is still a very, very good knife, but it probably isn't my number one. Anyhow, I bought this one here. This is a Huntsman. As you can see, this is quite a bit bigger, so while we've got 2 layers on the Compact, we have 4 layers on the Huntsman. Now the biggest reason for buying this is, one, because of these nano clips, and I can honestly say I can EDC this hanging in my pocket, absolutely no trouble. I would never have it just floating in my pocket, it's way too big and heavy for that, but actually having it on this little hook in your jeans pocket, you don't even notice it's there, which has really quite surprised me. Now this knife has got some really good benefits in the fact that we do have a saw blade. So I specifically bought this when I go green laning, four-wheeling in the Land Rovers or in the Jimny, or from across the fields or on a piece of property where we've got lots of trees. It is sometimes handy to have something that you can cut a small branch with, because if you get a branch across the track, you might not want to drive through it and damage your vehicle. You can go out and just quickly cut it off. We do unfortunately get a secondary blade, and I say unfortunately because actually if you look at the little Sportsman here, you think you've got a second blade until you turn it over and you find out you've got a really good little nail file. So it's not a diamond one, it's much more aggressive, and this really does work very well on your nails or anything else you might need to file down. It's got the nail cleaner, and also this doubles up as a Phillips screwdriver. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be claimed as that, but just for example, if you've got a Phillips screw like that, it fits perfectly. You're not going to get lots and lots of torque out of it, but it does work quite successfully as a screwdriver. So the Huntsman doesn't have that, but we do have the scissors. We do have the blade foot that the 91mm comes with, which amazingly, if we look at a 91mm blade versus the 84mm series blade, there's not a lot of difference in them. And then on the back we get the hook without the nail file, so there's no nail file on this knife at all. We do get the awl, and we do get the bottle opener. There is provision for the pin. It doesn't come with the pin, but I've added it. It doesn't come with the glasses screwdriver, but I've added it. But they are not plus scales, so you don't get the pen. So apart from a nail file and the pen, that almost does absolutely everything you'd ever want from a knife, but it is that bit chunkier and a bit bigger. And I'll be honest, even though I could quite comfortably EDC it, I did find it just a little bit too heavy, and I really missed not having a nail file. And then I stumbled on this. So this is a slightly different looking Victorinox knife. This is actually from the Evolution range. Unfortunately, when I checked their website recently, I don't think they do this particular one anymore. This is actually an Evolution 14 grip, which is actually part of the Wenger range, as was, which Victorinox I think bought in 2008. They took over Wenger. So this is actually an 85mm series knife, so it's not quite as big lengthwise as the 91s. It's closer to the 84s. The Evo scales do make it a little bit thicker. It's a 3-layer knife, and if you just look, these Evo scales do make it almost as wide as the 4-layer Huntsman, but it's not as heavy. It's definitely quite a lot lighter than the Huntsman. Could possibly tell you the exact weight. I think this is 76 grams, whereas the Huntsman's coming in almost 100 grams, 97 grams. So you know, there's a reasonable weight difference. And I would say I actually quite like these Evo grip scales. Again, hanging it on the little nano hook, you do not notice the fact this is any wider than the compact in your pocket. If you've just got it loose in your pocket, you are going to notice it, but the way I've been EDCing it, not so. We have a slightly different blade. It does say Victorinox on it, but it is more the profile of what the Wenger knives would have had, so it's closer to the profile of the 84mm rather than the 91mm blades, which is absolutely fine. It's a little bit deeper this way, but it's more than big enough as a blade for what I would want to use. I say these grips, so it kind of gives you a little bit of a well for your thumb, and it is very nice to actually use this. We do get, unfortunately, the can opener, but we do get the small spade end screwdriver. We do get the can opener. We do get scale tools, so we've got tweezers, and the toothpick. There's no pen, and there's no provision for the pin either. So in here it's without the pin, and it also didn't come with the glasses screwdriver, but I have added that. But what this has got is two things that really stand out. Is one, we have a pair of scissors. Now you'll note that these have got a lever on them. They're not like the regular scissors that you'll get on most Victorinox. We just look at the scissors from the compact. You can see these have got a metal spring in there, whereas this uses a lever action, and it uses sort of a back spring. Now, that, a bit like the Bocker ones, they do move when you go to use them, and they are actually serrated. I don't know if we'll be able to see it on here, but they've got a serrated edge on them. Again, this is what the Wenger knives had, so this is the scissors that Wenger used to do. Now, these scissors often get a bit of a bad rap, and I would say they are not very good for cutting fabric, and I dare say, if you had some paracord, that's the test everybody does. I don't actually have any paracord, and I've never needed to cut it. They do not cut things like paracord or any fabrics very well, and I think what happens is the little serrations actually get caught in the fibres, and they stop it, allowing the edge to slide along. But if you're cutting anything else, so something a bit more substantial, like paper or card or plastic, so something like a cable tie, these scissors are actually very, very good. Equally as good as these, maybe even slightly better on things like cable ties. It's just on the fabricy type materials they don't work so well. And last off, we have not a second blade, but we have a nail file, which is really cool. So again, we can use this as a Phillips screwdriver, a nail cleaner, and we do have a fairly good nail file. Now it is a diamond cut one, so it's a change from what we saw on the Sportsman earlier, which had this other style file. Now I would say this is a better file than the diamond one, but this is quite good. It's quite usable. It doesn't cover the entire area of the bladed section there, but it is more than good enough. So I was really surprised. I bought this, I think I got it off of Amazon. It was about £36, so I think it was quite good value at the time. If you can still find one of these, for me this is almost the perfect combo, and I found that I was carrying this more than I was carrying the compact, mostly because it does everything the compact does, but you get a better nail file. You don't have the pen and the pin. I don't use the pin very often, and the pen not quite so. So this was my #1 carry through the end of 2024 and all of 2025 up until a couple of weeks ago, and that's when it all changed. So I found this knife, which I believe is actually a new release from Victorinox. This is called the Champion. No, it's not. It's called the Companion. This is called the Companion. It's a 3-layer knife, so it is heavier and bigger than the compact. It's a 91mm series knife, but it is smaller and lighter than the 4-layer Huntsman, and you know, it's about that same sort of thickness as the Evo 14 is. It is a little bit heavier, but this weighs closer to this. I think we're going up to about 82 grams from 76, so it's quite a bit lighter than this. And you know, I think this one here, this weighs about 120 grams. So you know, we're quite a bit lighter than some of the other offerings out there. Now the biggest thing we've got on here is we do get the hook, which I still don't really understand why they include this. Although to be fair, we've only got 3 slots at the back. We've got the bottle opener, we've got a sewing awl. We do have provision for the pin, although I've not bought one yet. It didn't come with a glasses screwdriver. I have added that, so you don't have to spend a little bit extra. I don't know what you could put on the back here instead of the hook. There aren't actually a huge number of tools that Victorinox offer for the back of the knife, so you know, maybe the hook was the best thing to put on there. It's one of those things you possibly won't really use it, but it is there. We do have obviously the toothpick, we have the tweezers, we do have the pen. We do have a pair of scissors on here as well. So we're back to having the proper Victorinox scissors, which is fantastic. We have the 91mm blade. We have this new tool. We'll come back to that in a moment. We have a bottle opener with the larger spade end screwdriver on it. And importantly, we don't have a second blade. Somebody's listened to common sense. We've got a nail file here. So this is the same one that we found on the Sportsman, which was a really good nail file. So this really is almost my perfect knife. This is exactly what I would really want every day. It's got every tool on here that I'm likely to use or want. The only thing it hasn't got is a saw, which is fine. If I know I'm going somewhere where I'm going to need to take a saw, I'll take that knife. Although once you move to this, you do lose some of the functionality you've got of the smaller companion. But I can live with that for now. And it is a really good knife. This trumps the compact on my eyes. So if it's just loose in your pocket, the compact does have that size advantage and weight advantage, but with these Nanohooks, there's no question on it. I can't see any reason why I would pick a different knife over this to carry at the moment. And just going back to that new tool, this is actually a package opener. It does have the smaller screwdriver end on there as well still, and it's designed, it's got a sharp edge on it and a little bit of a serrated edge there, so you can stick it in an open packaging, and I would say it works really well. I've used it to open sort of plastic bag like packaging. It cuts through sellotape really well, or packing tape. My only real minor complaint is it's obviously handed, so it's flat on this side, and you've obviously got sort of the indentation and the bevel here and the sharpened edge, that if you're left-handed like me, it works fine when you're doing this, but when you get to the end of the box and you turn the blade that way, sometimes it snags a bit easier than if you've got it this way up. Now obviously you can just turn the knife round, and you know, if you had it upside down in your right hand, you're going to have the same problem, but it does kind of feel like it's a little bit right-handed biased, in the fact that, you know, when you're cutting towards you, it's the wrong way up. But that really is quite a minor complaint, and I have no other complaints with this knife, so it's just really that tiny minor complaint about its new tool. There we are. It's a 2025 sum up, and you know, yes, Victorinox definitely is still the champion out there, and this is clearly a country mile ahead of everything else. I would say the compact and the Evo are about even for me. No, would put them in almost joint second. I found I'd been carrying the Evo more than the compact, mostly because it had that better nail file on it, and I used the nail file more than I used the pen. And despite the scissors not being quite as good, they were good enough for most of the things I used them for, because I wasn't cutting paracord and I wasn't cutting fabric very often with the scissors. If that's something you are going to be doing, then the compact is definitely the way to go. And then from there, a Huntsman, so that's got a particular use, so we'll put that in kind of third position, and then probably I'd go with the Sportsman and the little Bocker, the Mini Team City 4, and the Bantam, all as a kind of joint fifth place. And that's kind of how I see the top 5 out of all the knives we've looked at today. You know, you need to tailor it for your own needs and what you want to do. There's a lot of good knives out there, but yeah, if you haven't seen this yet, check out the new companion. A little bit hard to find. I had to buy it direct from Victorinox, because it does come with their special edition ones, which I think are meant to be aimed more at ladies, that have different scales on them, and they're quite expensive, sort of 60–70 pounds. This one was about 40 pounds from the Victorinox site, so it's not a bad value knife. and the functionality you get and the quality you get, I just don't think anybody is close. It's kind of surprising, you know, when you see just how good Victorinox are and how popular they are. You would think other brands would want to do something similar, and they just don't. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts. Give me a like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Thank you.